Dune popcorn
Well,
bucket.
welcome back to Hacker Hangouts. Oh my gosh, it's been so very long, and I've missed you, and I've missed this, and it's a shameless excuse to hang out. And so much has happened. I think last one we did. I had the horrible thing of saying, "Is this our first one this year?" And you're like, "No, we did it back in January, and between trips and all of that, here we are, and we're finally getting to talk." And I'm pumped. There's so much that has happened. Las Vegas Convention Center, Defcon was canceled and then uncanceled, which is awesome in and of it, right?
You got the shirt.
I did. I was, you know what? It's very, very rare I buy shirts at Defcon because I get so many of them like for free or given or things like that. But this one, like, I was like, oh, it's just been, the meme's been so long, and this is the first time it's been uncanceled. It's been canceled, and we've done safe mode, but it's never been uncanceled. And this is the first time it's been uncanceled. It's amazing. So, do you want to talk Defcon? There's so much to talk about.
Let's talk Defcon. Well, first of all, let's talk about what's on everyone's minds. The Dune popcorn bucket. Do you have plans to see Dune 2? Have you not? Oh, good
no.
Lord. Have you not heard about the Dune popcorn bucket?
No.
Oh, you've been living under a rock. I need you
I have been.
Very quickly for everyone to see.
Here, can you pull it up?
You just Google Dune popcorn bucket so we can see your live reaction to this glorious piece of cinema. What, I don't know what to call it, that is being released this weekend.
No, they did not do.
Yeah, so it's
what is this?
For listeners in the future, it's Dune 2 release weekend, and the Dune popcorn bucket is all the rage right now. Anyway, Silk just had his absolute mind blown.
I'm glad you warned me. You don't share this on screen. So here's what baffles me. This is amazing me. Like, these things, stuff like this doesn't happen in a bubble. It's not like one person at their desk who develops this thing and then it just goes live. Like, entire marketing departments are dedicated to getting the traction of this. So either A, 20 people in this room saw this thing and like, oh, that's so good. That's so clever. That's so amazing. And one person was like, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. That building looks like you know what I mean? Like, this is they had to know. They had to know, and they would have expected this type of reaction just to get the news going.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Right?
100%. So anyway, that's the Dune popcorn bucket meme that's going on. Let's now back to Defcon.
Yes, it's a good segue. Gosh, I hope this is on the scab hunt list this year.
Oh well, let's just
design
design
design a Defcon popcorn bucket.
Yep. I'm just gonna drop that one to Dual D right now.
That is amazing.
All right, what were we talking about?
Defcon. So weirdly, we had this message like about a month ago. And for those who haven't seen it, long story short is Defcon is typically in some sort of Caesars property. Past couple years, 3 years, it's been in the Caesars Forum. There's a brand new building, all of that. And sometimes you hear rumblings. Sometimes as goons, you hear some sort of rumbling. Here it was like, bam, here is the message. In wonderful Defcon way, where it's very transparent, here is what happened, which I will say, there is no reason Jeff has to do that or Dark Tangent has to be that transparent. I love that it is. Here's the story. Long story short, Caesars canceled Defcon. They said you can't do it at Caesars Forum, which is unheard of. According to his email or his message, it is unheard of that Caesars or any place would ever do this because it's been going at Caesars property like 25 years. So it sent Defcon into a giant scramble of where do we go? And there's a lot of conference centers in Vegas. A lot of them are owned by Caesars properties. There's a few other ones. There's like, I think Sands has one. Mandalay Bay is where Black Hat is. But you're kind of scrambling last minute. And they came out in the same message saying they canceled us and they found a new location. They're scouting it, I think, this past week or even this week as they're actually going out there and seeing the lay of the land to start designing the maps. And it's Las Vegas Convention Center, which I want to talk about because it is such a... it's a terrible location, but it's an amazing location. And I'm going to say, like, I know it sounds opposite. It's amazing because since Rio, I went back and looked. We have not been under one roof since Rio. Yep. Like Rio was it. And I remember Rio. It was
I remember Rio was also kind of like, there's many floors to that conference center, right? There was like 4 or 5 floors. I think my first Defcon was at the Rio, and I got super lost in that building.
Caesars was the one I got lost in a lot.
Yeah. The first time it was at Caesars, I definitely got lost. But I mean, this is I actually think in terms of this could be a good thing, right? Not just because it's under one roof, but because it's under one roof with as big as it is, right? Like when it was at Rio, it wasn't 30,000 people. This is liable to be 33, 35, who knows, 40,000 people. And the amount of space that we're going to have is quite large. And what we do with all of that space is going to be interesting. Now, there are downsides, right? Like there is a hard out at, I think, 2:30 a.m. So the typical overnight crew that hangs out in the chill out lounges, that's not going to be a thing this year. Parties are obviously going to be spread out all over Vegas, which I think could be a good thing because, Scav Hunt could, find the DEFCON parties on the list, right? Like there's I think we will endure, if you will.
Well, it's funny. Somebody asked my knee-jerk reaction. My first thought was, you read this message and it's like, haha, DEFCON's canceled. DEFCON's canceled. Like we've heard the meme. It's great. It's hilarious. It's actually canceled. And I will always take a DEFCON over no DEFCON. Like It is a shameless excuse to hang out with people, talk to them. And if the alternative is either we don't have a DEFCON this year or we do what my good friend Gowrie has said many times, which is we figure it out. And they figured it out because there's been no evidence to the contrary that we ever haven't, even during safe mode. So Las Vegas Convention Center it is. It's going to suck. Like it's going to be it's going to suck. And I say that not in a mean way, but like every time we've gone to a new location, I get lost. I can't find food. I can't find the water. You don't know where anything is because the first time at any location stinks. The kicker here, and I think the saving grace, which is so cool to me, Las Vegas Convention Center is a convention center first. Forum was, here is a thing which is attached to Caesars and attached to Link, which you can do conferences at. But there was fundamental problems there. Like you went to the vendor area, like merch or vendors, like it was a meat grinder in that hallway. And they eventually figured out. I have to imagine, Las Vegas Convention Center, don't they do Comic-Con? Like, isn't that where Comic-Con is held?
They do CES, dude.
CES, that's it.
The place is huge. That's like a 300,000 people or some shit. It's insane.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, like their hallways should be big enough to accommodate us. They should have overwhelming space.
And
I think.
Oh yeah.
Here's the question. Do you think which problem are you going to have more? So much space, you cannot find anyone. Like you have like 5 chill out lounges and you're like, which one are you at? Or do you think it's going to be like we're in that figure out mode and we're not going to be leveraging the space correctly?
I mean, we're definitely going to learn things about the space. So the latter is guaranteed, right? Someone's going to get shoved next to someone else that is really popular and the lines are going to be stupid, right? And they'll figure out that there are specific places in the conference center that are more well equipped to handle long lines than others. But also, I think there's enough space. So I'm excited in that sense where even if that happens, it's not going to be like the Forum where you have the hallway of death. right? Where and for listeners' context, like there was a time last year where we went to try and go over to the vendor area to do something for Scav Hunt and get a video, and we walked into the hallway, and it was wall to wall, no space to move, people. And Silk and I both looked at each other and were like, this is an issue. This is a safety problem. Like, if something happens, someone's going to get hurt. And
Mhm.
it was, and we both looked at each other and noped out. We're like, we're going to come back. I do not want to be in this hallway. I don't think that is going to exist at the conference center. And I think there's going to be a bunch of people who are, for and against moving this to a conference center. But I think after the first year of it being at a conference center, everyone's gonna be like, fuck it, let's just do
Yeah.
that from now on, because it's gonna be too convenient in so many ways. Now, that
I'm
said, I have a question to pose. Does this make DEF CON a trade show?
I saw that in chat. And I the first comment was it always has been. And I say no. Again, I know, like, all memes aside, no, it's not a trade show. It's not it. Even if you look at, like, there are counter things. You have exhibitors hall, and which in and of itself you're like, well, that's a trade show. Yes, in that area, exhibitors hall, absolutely. But they're taking all the money and they're throwing it to, like, fund parties and fund charities and fund the conference. So no, it's not. Yeah, sure, we can joke all you want. I don't think it is. I think there's trainings there. It's, what are you going there to, like, what's your trade? You go there, the hacker trade.
Yeah, I mean, I would call hacking a trade at this point.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is it's a catch-all term. We've had this
Yeah,
argument, what is a hacker? But, like, it's not a trade show. Sure, trainings and talks aside, but no. If you remove the talks, one, there's contests. You have a whole room dedicated to contests in villages. How do villages fit into a trade
your
show?
answer is no. Your answer is
No.
no. It's not a trade show. Yeah, I tend to agree. I think there's going to be a bunch of humming and hawing over it, and unless the exhibitors hall becomes one, I'll say, unless the exhibitors hall eats an entire track's worth of space, we haven't turned into a CES or a, what do you, we haven't turned into like an anime expo or things like that. I don't think we've gotten there.
I think the exhibitors. Let's talk about this exhibitors hall, because I know we've talked about it before, but I think there's such an interesting opportunity with it, because the goal of exhibitors hall was, one, there was people who don't fit into a vendor area but want to buy a table there, and there's, like, a company who's sending, like, 15 people to DEF CON, and they're like, well, might as well have a table there too, like OpenVPN or Hack the Box. There we go, Hack the Box, perfect one for this. They're not a vendor. They don't sell anything. They sell, like, subscription services online, but they want to represent at DEF CON because that is their audience. That's a place for them. The thing which is interesting to me is exhibitors, at its core, was to fund parties, contests, give food out to people running stuff. Like, I actually think the core of it's so cool. But I think it's one of those things where it is the only thing DEF CON can do outside of, like, just digging in their own pockets. I mean, it's one of the few things DEF CON can do to fund these contests. And that door's never been opened before. And what I mean by that is, like, contests always had to fund themselves. And most of them, some of them take sponsors. Most of them don't, because it's kind of gross. No one wants to be like,
Yeah.
DEF CON Scav Hunt brought to you by
I guess
NordVPN. Like,
I guess this is a way of laundering sponsors and allowing contests to be sponsor free.
Yeah.
While
but which is true. But
sponsor laundering.
Now that the door is open, there's also this other weird thing, is I think contests start going, oh, the community actually wants to fund us. Like, I think when it starts, like, and go with me for a second, like, like, use Darknet. You and I, intimately familiar with Darknet. We had a strong community. We still have a strong community. We have people who love Darknet and would be more than happy to support it. But it always felt scummy on our side to go, oh yeah, pay for the contest, because we just felt that wasn't the goal of it.
Yeah, it wasn't the goal.
And I think exhibitors what is a means to like do that. But what's interesting is you can't have contests selling stuff. It's against the
Yeah.
convention rules. It's against Las Vegas. It's against Nevada. There's taxes and all of that. So you can't actually sell stuff in any of the contest area. It has to go through the vendor area. So
I think the exception, I don't know how we got that exception with the badges.
We were the first one like ever to have badges outside of Defcon. Like badge life was Darknet's problem. it was their fault. But I will be amazed, and I think it will happen, is having the community support the community in some way. I don't know what shape it will form into, but I think at one point, DEFCON can only do so much with the exhibitors. I will be interested. I'm not saying like Patreon for contests or something. I will be curious what develops to allow the community to fund its own content, and I think that will be really interesting.
Yeah, and I already know what the immediate pushback on this is going to be, which is anytime you involve money, there's space for abuse, there's space for taking advantage of the situation, and ultimately you have to ask the question. All right, let's say you go down the route. By the way, not representatives for DEFCON in the sense we are not saying any of these things are happening. We're just, spitballing here as to the direction things could go. Let's say they opened up the door to fund contests or fund content other than just the food and feeding people, which is what they have been doing with the exhibitor money. And they donated some of it to charity. Let's say they open the door to doing that funding. All of a sudden, you have to have someone who makes the decision of who gets what. And then you have to, in the process of applying to become content at DEFCON, now everyone's thinking about, do I get a piece of that pie? Which is potentially toxic. Not potentially, it pretty much is toxic in that it changes the game, if you will, that people play, in that, traditionally the content that shows up at DEFCON, whether it's contests or what have you, is pretty much community driven. And there's a purity to that, but there's also instability that comes with that. And so this is that trade-off that I think a lot of people are starting to see and starting to wonder how long before that type of thing happens and the fundamental core of DEFCON changes from what was a lifestyle conference to a trade show. And I think it's a valid question, and I don't think we're there yet, but I think asking that question is completely fair if you want to kind of combat those types of scenarios from happening. Go ahead.
But let me throw out this one. You were in the contest area with me. You saw some of the contests, which were, we'll call them community-driven lifestyle contests. Like these were ones they built themselves. Darknet, bam. That's one of them. There's other ones as well. Then you look at, what was it? The ICS CTF. Like in that, and again, this isn't disparaging it in any way, but you looked at that, and that was tens of thousands of dollars into that setup.
Or
easily
hours.
$100,000 in hours and full-time jobs. And then we went to them, not only with their sponsors, but this is their full-time job to do nothing but this thing. Like it is, and it was an incredible setup. But this is where I'm wondering, at what point do those type of setups just crush the other ones, where you only have like 4, we'll call it community driven. You have like Hack Fortress, Scav Hunt, Darknet. Like you have a handful which are
that's kind of the point. That is really the point. And I do think that maybe that's okay. Right? It becomes harder over time. Like the conference gets bigger. You need bigger things to service a bigger group of people. You need more things. I don't even know if we technically need more things. There's already too much to do at DEFCON, but you do need bigger things, right? Like you can't have the same hack, you can't have the same CTF style things year after year after year. Eventually, conference goers get tired of the same thing. And there is this general race of, bigger, better, more things to do, flashier. and that's where we see the industrial control system one, which it was super cool. The layout of it was huge, and it was very complex, and it was a spectacle to an extent. You have to. I think we're at the point where we're big enough that you got to have those, and you have to find ways to make sure that it's beneficial to the people running it and to the conference goers in a way that's not scummy. So I think this is a natural evolution, but I think you're right. We do need to ensure that there is space for community driven events to continue developing, right? So if somebody wants to do an innovative but small contest idea, that there is space for it to be accepted. And I think there's danger there that as the conference gets bigger and bigger and bigger, that will fall by the wayside, and everyone will say, "Oh, let's just go with the cool stuff, the big cool stuff that has funding."
You know what? I'll counter it, even though I'm in agreement. I think the other side of things is there's always, if this is not it's not Black Hat where it's like, hey, pay to play, but you do have to, every year, Darknet has to do a call for contests, like all the calls for everything, call for pay. And I think they curate those things. I think same thing with the call for papers who are speaking. They curate those. They can't just have everyone be an industry speaker because that's gross. They go, okay, X number of technical talks, X number of inspirational talks, X number of just like weirdo, like doesn't belong, but totally belongs at Defcon talks. Like I'll use, was Jason Scott. Oh gosh, it was one of my favorite talks he gave, was on like text-based adventure games. Like, which was just like way back when. He's like an archivist, so he has like zillions of these old things that he just saves, and it's awesome. Like his talk was fantastic, but it's totally not technical exploitation or anything like that. So I think when they look at contests, they start saying, okay, so many of these ones, so they don't have all of the same one. But yeah, it's a
what I'm saying is it's good, it's healthy right now, right? As the conference gets bigger, we need to maintain that. That would be good. That's all I'm saying. There is a push to try and get bigger and bigger spectacles in some sense to fill out the conference floor and to fill out the space. And you're right that there is a danger that some of the community driven stuff will fall by the wayside because it feels unapproachable anymore.
Spinning back to Las Vegas Convention Center, I had just looked at it yesterday. First time ever actually seeing a picture of it. I think there is a virtual walkthrough. I haven't done it yet, but it's an impressive building. But there is nothing near it. I think there's the underground like driving tunnel, which looks terrifying, by the way. But I think that doesn't go to any hotel. That's not the West one, is it?
Oh, it's there. It's there. Just like I'm not interested. I don't want anything to. I don't want anything to do with Elon Musk and his nonsense. So I'm good. I don't need to go through his death tunnel. I'm good.
His tunnel with no escapes in it. If a car breaks down halfway through that, I just saw that, I was like, that's terrifying. I never had that fear before, but thank you for that one. But what's interesting, there's nothing's close. You have to drive to it. Do you think that's going to drive down attendance out of curiosity?
No, I mean, you don't have to drive to it. The monorail goes right to it. And it's a little bit of a walk after the monorail. But yeah, the monorail goes right to the convention center. And and the monorail goes into like the Flamingo and right through Caesar's Forum and all that stuff. So like there's ways to get out there that are okay. You don't absolutely need a car. Now, once you get there, I think the monorail lets off like across the street and on the south portion. So like going from monorail station to the West Hall is a bit of a hike, and that will be annoying. But like for us, it's basically like pack our camera bags light because we're not going to be able to go back to our room.
Yeah. Well, again, there'll be places I'm sure we can ditch it between vendors and
supposedly the cell service out there sucks.
Really?
Supposedly. Yeah, I don't know because I haven't been there myself, but that I have heard this.
Maybe we can ask someone at DEFCON to spin up a microcell for us.
Get the FCC out there again. You turn that on, you're going to prison.
Oh goodness! I am thankful. I'm curious what the tech stack will be, but I'm always impressed by their ability to stand up a stable Wi-Fi is always absolutely unbelievably impressive how well the secure Wi-Fi works at Defcon. I am hopeful, by the way, there is more speed to be had at Las Vegas Convention Center because Forum was quite lacking. I still go back to like the upload speed there was just junk.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't think that's going to be all that different, to be honest. I mean, maybe like they run CES and shit there, so like they have to have top of the line. They have to have top of the line connections to everything.
Yeah, I was amazed that like Forum didn't have much. It was like a shared gigabit line. Like I remember them saying it was not much.
I think the nice thing will be they have like an actual food court there, so like it's not going to be a free for all. Go off into Las Vegas and then come back attempt to eat.
I'm curious what their prices are going to be. Like for Defcon, they're like, always terrible.
The real question is whether or not they're gonna do the like Goon Bucks or the Con Bucks thing. Whether the convention center will accept such a deal or if it's going to be cash.
They're doing 100%. This one I'll take a bet against. Like they absolutely will do them.
It's just new management, right? That's the question.
It's new management because the idea makes so much sense. We are going to buy X amount of chips. Use them or lose them. Here's free money. It's like coupons. Coupons are like in gift cards, the greatest marketing thing ever because best case scenario, you never use it. Next best case scenario, you spend half of it and there's still $5 left on the thing. Or you have to spend more than the card, which is more money than they got.
Gift cards, not coupons. Gift cards.
Gift cards. Yes. Sorry, I meant to say gift cards. That's effectively what those things are is little gift cards. It totally behooves them to use those. So I all of those things are going to sort it out. The things which I think were going to be difficult is like the maps. Every year the maps get released. And what they do is every year they look, all right, what worked last year? What didn't work this year? Okay, let's tweak it. Here it's like net new. I am curious how much like analysis paralysis is going to happen because if you look at the Las Vegas Convention Center, it's all configurable. It's not like Forum was kind of like you have this room, and this room, and you can configure it a little bit. Here, like every wall is movable.
Yep. Yeah, and well, I mean, what the largest room in the west side, I think, is like 600,000 square feet, which is the size of the Caesars Forum. Like the size of the largest room of the convention center is the size of the main convention area we were in last year, which is actually insane. I think we have like a total of 800,000 square feet or something this year. That's what because they have to rent it by the square foot, I think. But I haven't looked at the map yet.
Gulo looked up some of the rules, and I know he had mentioned a lot of his concerns were things like the union and drop and outside food and inside. I think most of that is going to be the same as it always has been. Either figure it out, but things like you have to rent their projectors. A lot of that was the same as Forum. They're not going to make it so if you bring one in, I don't think they're going to like restrict that or anything any more than Defcon. Defcon is going to have. My curiosity is mostly on simple things, travel back and forth. But I think the shenanigans, Defcon's always going to have a significant amount of shenanigans happening. And a new location, it's always interesting because you never know where the security it needs to be shored up a little bit. And I'll be curious how, I don't know, even with CES, though, I'm sure a lot of that was already locked down, is my hope, compared to what it could have been.
I don't know. So remind me, I think normally Defcon has 3 tracks. Is that what we normally have?
I think we normally have 4. I think it's 4.
All right. So there's like 4 main halls in the West. I think what's going to happen is they're going to split. I mean, I'll have to look. All of those main halls are 150 square feet each, or 150 square feet, 150,000 square feet each. I think what they might do is like they might split 2 of those halls into each of the 4 tracks, and then you have the other 2 halls split between contests, exhibitor, et cetera, vendor, et cetera. But they're all on one long hallway. So like, what is
how many floors are there? 2?
3. There's 3.
3.
So the way it works, I think, is the second floor is a bunch of like breakout rooms essentially, and then the third floor is what looks like is going to have like all the villages. But it's unclear how big some of these third floor rooms are. But like the thing is that if you look at the map is very deceiving. Here, I can share my screen if you want to.
Sure, let me preview it before I just go blasting my screen out here.
Yeah, that way I can't share the popcorn bucket. Uh,
Here we go. There's one. Camera 2. He says this as I might just have to drag it on. Let's see. Back to live. We'll do this one, and none of this is going to work, but that's fine. I can
None of
drag
this
it in
consummate
almost as if.
professionals.
Oh, doing it live. Oh my gosh, it worked. So exciting.
All right. So this is the main floor over here, and I don't know how well. There, we'll do this.
Yeah.
So this is the main floor. These are the main 4 tracks, right? And these are big rooms, 154,000 square feet. I imagine they're going to split these up into the different tracks. Like maybe each of these will have a track and then something in front of it or something like that. Who knows? What I'm interested to see is these little breakout rooms down here in the bottom left. And then there's the food hall where there's actual food. This is going to be a complete mess, but you know, if it serves CES, it'll probably be good enough for us. What I'm going to find interesting is level 2. And if we zoom out here, you can see it like overlays this. So there's a floor that overlays this chunk and the food hall where there's a bunch of breakout rooms. And I'm curious to know how big these things are, because these are kind of like perfect size for hosting large contests or villages. But if you remember, the villages have gotten to the point where like the blue team village is huge, huge, enormous, right? And so, you know, we also have these breakout rooms over here, and then this is still all of this is open space because it sits over the halls. But then on the third floor, you have additional breakout rooms that look similar size to the second floor. Actually, they're bigger, assuming this is to scale, which may not be true.
What's interesting is I will say, looking at these, there are a lot more bathrooms. I will say that was one thing with Forum. Forum had like 2 there was like two bathrooms way over at registration and 2 bathrooms like way up the hallway. Like it does look like this. You have a building built to host a lot of people, which is really cool. Like this is really I like the idea that we're all going to be under one roof. I'm curious if there is a back patio or something like that for maybe toxic barbecue can happen closer this year as opposed to way off site.
Well, assuming they allow it, that's the real issue. There is a roof spot here. So
is there a pool on the roof?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know.
I mean, I'm curious if there's a pool on the roof.
So map is not to scale, by the way. Bottom right corner. You can't see it on your screen, but the map is not to scale. So this space here is the same as the second and third floor space is the same size. So I'm gonna wait. I'm optimistic that these little breakout rooms down here in the like bottom right corner are going to be nicely sized enough to host large contests or villages, because if that's the case, it's gonna make like the contest area, or it's gonna make logistics so nice. It is. I think it'll make logistics so nice. So yeah, that's kind of the map of what we're looking at for this year. I think it'll be interesting. I'm gonna stop sharing now.
I'm curious. What do you think the community impact is going to be being over at Las Vegas Convention Center where the hotels are separate?
I do think we're going to lose some attendees, but I think we're also going to gain some attendees. So I think it's going to be a wash, to be honest. Let me put it this way. For the 10% of quote unquote true Scotsmen, true misfits, they're all still going to go to Defcon.
Yeah.
Like, oh, grumble, saber rattling, change is bad. Nah, it's going to Defcon. Still
Well,
going to
again,
DEF CON.
it's that a DefCon always beats no DefCon every
Yeah.
time. So you're still going to get people to go. I'm curious things. It's not often, like, because that's the one I've heard most is, oh, it's gonna no hotels, communities, all that. But I think for the most part, your hotel was there just to go ditch equipment and then go
Yeah.
back down. And the only time me and you were ditching equipment was to go do an upload, go drop cameras, go drop half the equipment, and then just we've done video during the day. Let's go relax and grab other cameras and then go do photo.
So this is one thing I'm worried a little bit about. For goons and for people helping to run conferences or run contests and run content, having the option to be able to go to your room midday and get away from everything, that will be missing. And knowing our our cohort, I think it is going to be less friendly to those who are sensitive to overstimulation, because there will need to be like quiet spaces, because it's going to be difficult to get away without literally leaving the conference. So I think there is that risk that we're going to um, push some of those people away. And so I think we should try to do something to accommodate that. But yeah. So I mean, like you joke like, oh, we always used our room to drop off equipment. No, like we often used our room to not just drop off equipment, but like literally just sit and get away from the loudness of the conference for 20 minutes before going back out. And that's going to be missing.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think there was an opportunity for like what was it? There was a mental health village. This is years ago, but part of it was like a little quieter, and it was made to be that. I could see having a chill out lounge, which was made is a little quieter there. That's a great idea. I think there's an opportunity this year, which there hasn't been before, because there's so much space. I can't even imagine how DEF CON, will say the executive team, actually figures out how much space they need from year to year, because I have to imagine it's incredibly hard to gauge how many attendees they're going to be. This year you can pre-register, just like other years where you can just buy a ticket and show up, get a guaranteed badge and all of that. But I'll be interested to see how the layout comes about. The other thing I will say is, unlike any other year, like this year is, unlike any year, but this is a huge year of opportunity. Like if you've ever thought about submitting a paper or something, a paper, a talk, a village, a contest, I have to imagine DEF CON's looking, going, we have more space. Let's add more stuff on. Let's do more things. So I think if there's opportunity to go, hey, I've been thinking about this contest, I've been thinking about submitting this paper, this is the year to do it. I mean, every year is the year to do it, but this year especially.
Yeah, I agree. Like this, anytime there's a major change like this, there's always opportunity, right? In the chaos, there will be space to fill, and you can fill it. I think it's going to be interesting. I ultimately think this will be a net good, and I've also said this before. And again, not a representative for DEF CON. Nothing I say holds any weight. I have said that this could be the thing that pushes the community to ask whether or not it needs to be in Las Vegas. Because if it can be at the Las Vegas Convention Center, it can be at any convention center. Now, granted, the Las Vegas Convention Center is huge, but we're not using the entire convention center. So is there opportunity to move it elsewhere? Now, people have said, like, no, Jeff probably will never do that, just because Vegas is, there's opportunities outside the conference to do more things. And but one of the biggest arguments was the number of hotels in the area. Well, now if we're having to travel to the conference via monorail or whatever, what's the difference between doing it there and doing it at the Boston Convention Center, for example, which has metro access and is easily accessible. I love Boston. I'm a stickler for it. I always bring it up, but also because I've been to that convention center and I know it's actually pretty sweet.
I
But
I like
it could be
Boston.
elsewhere.
The traffic, I swear, can just go, just can get tossed out.
Yeah, why
The
why are you driving in Boston? You absolute madman.
Yeah, bought that. Just like, oh, I do like Old Town when I've gone down. Like that has been really nice. Going down Boston, like visiting Harvard, MIT, like those ones have been super nice. I was told, by the way, was it John Harvard, the statue where you see the foot where it's really shiny. It's all everyone goes up and rubs the foot. And then I was told by many Harvard students that at night you pee on it because then all the tourists rub the foot. Not sure how true that is, but as a warning, fair warning to everyone. In Boston, I don't know. I could see Florida
So
maybe, but
my point is also Boston in the summer is great, but it doesn't need to be in one place. Like a lot of big conferences don't stick down to one place, and instead every year they change their location, if only because. And like, there's other problems associated with this, specifically with Defcon, that I'll come up to. But like, they see it as an opportunity to allow their attendees to travel around, right? And so a lot of international conferences will go all over the world and move from place to place. Now, the logistical issue of doing that with something like Defcon is Defcon has a lot of strange stuff as part of the QM process, and that may all live in Vegas. And so the idea that you might move DEF CON elsewhere because logistically a lot of stuff may already live in Vegas, that may be a non-starter, and that I would totally understand. But I just think it would be cool if we had a traveling DEF CON.
I'll throw out there that I don't see DEF CON ever leaving Vegas. However, I mean, this is a bet, which again, you can't really fight me on because there's no way of knowing.
I'll fight.
So I was saying is, if COVID would not have happened and DEF CON would have continued the growth pattern it was already on, I could see there being a DEF CON East where it would be another one that happened a different period of the year. Because it would cannibalize some of the DEF CON audience. I think hardcore, like the 10%, would still just go like, we're going to both. But I could see it cannibalizing some of the audience, but doing a DEF CON East.
So interesting you say that, because ShmooCon basically was DEF CON East. And that happened to DC. And ShmooCon is dying. They're stopping the conference. It's no longer a thing after this year, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it's dying. And I say that mainly because it might have done the same thing DerbyCon did. So DerbyCon was growing. They were going crazy. And it was, oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank on his name.
No. ShmooCon's last ever conference is next year. They are canceling ShmooCon after that. It is done.
DerbyCon was growing. It was growing great. It was Trusted Sec. What is his name? Like the Red Team Fit. He's like a big buff guy. He's great. The kicker with that one is legitimately the community started going goofy. Like instead of being community driven, it was effectively like, I can make no right decision. It was that overwhelming, which I'm sure that Dark Tangent gets oftentimes, of like, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong. And he's grown that resilience. He effectively was like, we don't need to do this conference. And because this is causing so much stress, we're done. We can't do it anymore. Where Shmoo, I don't think it was that, but it could be you're aging out. The conference is old enough where I don't know why they're shutting it down, but there is opportunity for another conference on the East Coast now. Not that I think there always is opportunity when it comes to those conferences if they're done well.
I can't imagine Dark Tangent willingly running another DEF CON on the other half of the year. Like, he already runs. I guess I don't remember if he still runs Black Hat. I think he doesn't.
He sold it. I think it was sold. I don't know.
That's in the same week, and it was the sister conference. And so, like, I imagine the logistics of doing two things in the same city, same week, just feels like planning one big event. But Imagine
Yeah.
going from planning DEF CON in Vegas to planning DEF CON in February or March on the East Coast. Also, that would be a
I,
freaking nightmare.
I also, I think it's kind of funny too, Grug. You could do an East Coast one, but now I'm sitting here going, we had Darknet, and Darknet would take Darknet contest at DEF CON. DEF CON, way more work than just one contest. And we would take 1 week off, 2 weeks off, and then start the next year. So you would
Yeah.
need to double your teams. You're burning people
Yeah.
out. You're going to have to pull on. Because even DEF CON only has like, was it 2 full-time people, 3 full-time people?
And
2?
also remember, like, it is a business, but it is not a conference like CES. Like, CES is there to promote stuff,
Mhm.
selling stuff, businesses. That's not what DEF CON is for now, I suppose. I can't imagine DEF CON ever turning into that.
I can't imagine it leaving Vegas. There's just other I would think there's other reasons. There's stuff to do. There's, you go off and you do stuff at night where most places are shut down at 9, 10.
I mean, that is true. That is definitely true. Although, like, I'll say most con goers, I don't know how many of them actively engage with Vegas. Then again, like most of the 10% of misfits, we'll say the misfits, they're like not going out into Vegas to do Vegas things. They're going out in Vegas to engage with the parties and or like work on a contest with friends and things like that. But for the other 90%, yeah, I can see why it's in Vegas and why it will probably be Vegas. Also, yeah, Braden, as a non-casino attendee, I am psyched for the new venue. I am over the moon ecstatic to not have to walk through a freaking casino to engage with the conference. For the love of God, I hate the casinos so much.
Yeah, that's why I share the comment. It was like I am overjoyed and I am so happy. I don't care how well they clean the air or any of that. Even if they have no smoking inside, you still smell that stale stink of the cigarette smoke, like which is like stale inside the casinos. So it is super nice to be at like Caesar's Forum. No smell. It was great. It had great airflow and everything like that. I am excited because if CES can do what 300,000, I'm going to just make up numbers, 8 million attendees. If they can do 8 million attendees, like they can, how many is it you said?
120,000.
Yeah.
4 times the size of DEF CON.
If they can handle that, like the airflow and all of that is good enough for DEF CON. And I love the fact that I'm not going to have to go through a casino. I don't have to smell it. I don't have to do any of it.
Are you? For a second there, I thought you were saying you were worried about the smell of the attendees, but
oh yeah, 3, 2, 1
the airflow
rule.
is good.
I mean, like for the most part, it's it's the 3, 2, 1 rule. 3 hours of sleep, 2 meals, at least 1 shower a day, and then you're solid. I mean, for the most part, like DEF CON's pretty good. You got that. Got a few shady areas in there that will remain over there. There's other parties which I'm curious what's going to end up happening because like there was like the blanket fort con, which was really fun for like the young kids who are like and the adults, but which would build these giant like 3-story blanket forts where though all those towels and equipment and everything was from the casino. So I'm curious what CES is going to do. Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure about that one. Someone mentioned it online. No, maybe it's wrong, but it was in the Defcon forum. Someone had mentioned all that came from Caesar's Forum.
I mean, they'll figure it out. Like we're a group of hackers. They'll figure it out.
On the other side of things, you wonder what new opportunities Las Vegas Convention Center brings because if they did CES, there's probably like again, I don't like Caesar's Forum was made to be like let's say like business centric. Where CES, I'm sure has like the Superdome like thing with drop down with like 8 screens on it and a bunch of cameras and LEDs. Like I'm curious what some of the late night parties might end up being. I'm curious if DJ Jackalope will successfully bring down the ceiling again. I'm curious. Like I think some of the DJ night stuff could be epic because if they host CES,
I think that is exactly the point. Like there's going to be opportunities here that people aren't seeing because I mean they may not actively run content at the conference. I can tell you, like when the announcement came out, you and I were like, "Oh, how's this going to affect Scav Hunt?" That's the first thing we both thought of, right? And I was like, "Oh, put find Scav Hunt on the Scav Hunt list because the place is so freaking big, right? Like as a meme, right? But there's going to be opportunities in that space, and people are already thinking about it, right? Like one of the things I pitched to them, I was like, oh, instead of having one scav hunt place, have multiple, and then have stamps that people have to collect, and try and find scav hunt. Like that's actually kind of a funny idea, but I don't think that's realistic. But that was just kind of one example. But yeah, you have that week of like, it's starting to get, it's doing this. Oh man, change is bad. Blah 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 blah. And then all the creatives pop in and they go, actually, don't they have a giant thing that drops down from the ceiling that I could turn into a rave thing? Like all of those things. The shenanigans are afoot. They are alive and well and are being planned.
As far as Wi-Fi Addict, you ask, Red Team, more accessible. You know what? It can only get better. Again, I can only comment, the Red Team Village and Blue Team Village was one of the most miserable things to get in and out of. And I say this because my memory of both of those rooms, that whole strip of rooms of all the villages, was there was one entrance and one exit.
Yep.
Maybe an emergency one, but there was a giant line waiting to get in. In one, I hope they grow, but I have to imagine, I have to hope and pray there is at least an entrance and an exit, because that was the dumbest way. And again, they were limited. There was no other doors they could open outside the emergency ones, outside like the ones that they had to have for fire code. I have to imagine there'd be more doors there.
If nothing else, so the actual question was, do you think the Red Team Village will be more accessible this year? Years past, it sucked trying to get in. If nothing else, yes, it will be more accessible, if only because you don't have to walk through 3 casinos to get to it. Right? Like, because it's all going to be in one spot. You may still have to walk from one end of the convention center to the other end of the convention center, but that is way less disruptive than having to go from the freaking Forum to the Flamingo. That was miserable. I have always hated that ever since we started out at like Paris and Bally's. I hated the having to move from space to space, right? So like, to answer your question, yes, it will be more accessible. Whether or not logistically it will be easier for you to get physically in the room, who the hell knows? Like, that's going to come down to, you could probably ask that question of every room this year and no one's going to be able to give you a definitive answer.
Caesars will be the pinnacle forever of like the most upsetting moment I've had at Defcon. So there was for the 1 year, instead of staying at what they called the Palisade or whatever it is, way over in the back, I had like the tower rooms, and you come down the elevator, and now I'm sitting here going, I think it was Caesars, but you would come out of the room, and then both Paris and Bally's had the same thing. But you came down in the room, and then you would walk all the way around through Paris, through the hallways, through Palace, Caesar's Forum, same thing, all the way around. And it would be like a 30-minute trek all the way through the hotel to get it. In the last day of the conference, I found out you could go out the door, walk a 2-minute across the pool outside, and then right into the conference.
No,
that broke me. I was just like, are you kidding me?
Even better, the last year we were at Caesars, I think it was Bunny or maybe it was Skyria discovered that in reference to where the contest area was, there was a sneaky elevator in the back corner that went directly up to rooms. And it was like a one little tiny elevator, not a main thoroughfare area, but there was like direct access to rooms from the show floors.
There was Caesars.
And we discovered we discovered that the last year we were there, and everyone was just like, oh no, this could have been so much easier.
Caesar's Forum, to the, if you, again, I don't know what direction it was, but the left of the pool, when you went across to the pool, there was an elevator on the outside of the building. Like outside, you would enter the elevator from the outside, not through a door or something like that. It was an elevator which was exposed to the outside, and you could take that up, and it would drop you right across from the contest floor, and no one used it. And it was funny because this was before gooning and everything like that. So you needed a contest badge to get in, and not all of us had contest badge. You could get up to the floor, and it bypassed all the goons. And it was the entire conference. None of the goons knew you could get there. So you get right to the contest room.
Terrifying.
I'm curious how many of the Las Vegas Convention Center ones will have that, where you can just go, oh, surprise, there is a way to get to this room faster. The fact that it's one, oh gosh, walking across all the hotels was always miserable.
Yeah. So as a general question, is X going to be more accessible? Yes, 100%. Like, I think the whole conference is going to be more accessible as a whole, because it's all under one roof, all in one space, and in a space that is designed to hold conferences of this size or larger. Like, I think the positives 100% outweigh the negatives. And so I'm trying to keep a positive spin on the fact that we're in a conference center that's off strip now. I've actually been saying for years, I wish they would just move it to the conference center, because I hated, like, the one year we had stuff split across Planet Hollywood.
Oh, yeah.
That was the most miserable experience of a Defcon by far. Not even close. Having to go from freaking Bally's all the way over to Planet Hollywood was ungodly miserable.
Yeah, like even Defcon, there was a couple times it was very miserable. I just pulled it up. Defcon 27 was it was very silly. It was Paris, Bally's, Planet Hollywood, and Flamingo. 28th would have been, that was the one planned, which went to safe mode. That probably would have been miserable too. Caesar's Forum, Harrah's, Link, Flamingo. And then same thing. That's what we did. Defcon 30, Defcon 31 was Caesar's Forum, Flamingo, Harrah's, and Link. This year, Las Vegas Convention Center, the Sierra. Like, I think the only reason it's split is they always like to keep trainings separate from actual Defcon.
And the trainings are after the conference, so it's not really split, right? The conference ends and then the trainings start. So that's like perfect. And for anyone staying, you stay at the Sierra. Like, that's the way they did it.
I'll be curious. In some ways, I'll be interested how many fun parties will be at the Sierra, because I've never been at the Sierra. I think a lot of people, when we were at the Riviera, how many of them a lot of people would stay at the Sierra instead of the Riv. I'll be curious how well that casino hosts DEFCON, like not Las Vegas, but like Sierra, as far as how easy will it be to do parties and things like that. There, I'm also, gosh, I'm hesitant to bring it up, but I kind of realized you kind of like missed a piece of DEFCON last year because of the shutdown. In some ways, I'm just like excited that there is, like, last year, because of Caesar's Forum and how it was set up, there was nowhere to spill out to, and it was a mess. Where at least, like, again, it's a weird comment, but like here, there's a Sierra. That's where it is. Sierra, Las Vegas Convention Center versus, I don't know, maybe Caesar's Forum or Flamingo or Harrah's or Link or any of those places. Where here it's more of it's more concentrated, which is, I think,
I mean,
quite
like,
amazing.
if you need more space, we'll just get more of the conference center.
Yeah, it's going to be weird. What's kind of cool too, though, I could see DEFCON, not this next year, but having an ability to expand or contract on demand, where they could say, okay, we need another chill out lounge. Great. Move, do like move a couple walls and we're good.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's all my thoughts. I don't know if you have any more. Where else do you want to go?
No, you want to end the way we started on the Dune popcorn bucket? Now I desperately want to know what a DEFCON popcorn bucket looks like.
What an incredible idea. Like, someone, that is an idea that you could have. I have to imagine when Can you imagine what was the marketing conversation? Like someone's like, we could do this, and so some guy in the back's like, I got this, boys. Don't worry. I know exactly what we should do. Let me prototype this with marketing, and then brings the first one and sets it down, and everyone sits there going, that
Ship it.
will get ship it. We've got this. Oh gosh, that is not that is a thing. And what's so much more miserable is I don't know how young will people be who go to Dune? It's not really a kids movie, but like, gosh, you have in your mind the person who came up with this is like, yep, this is exactly where you want to reach your hand to grab the popcorn through this thing, and it's definitely your hand you're reaching into this thing. Like,
all right, we can
amazing. What's your final thoughts?
I think it's going to be a good year. I think it's going to be a good year for Defcon. I think it's going to be an overall positive experience. I think it's a good thing. I think the people who have negative feelings about it are still going to go, and they're going to find that the pros, not even a little bit, but far outweigh the cons of being off strip. Mm-hmm. There is the question of how do we manage the mid-con break that we used to do going back up to the room, and there's going to be more logistical questions of how do we store gear that used to be stored in like the vendor area overnight. There are going to be logistical growing pains, but I think once it gets figured out, it's going to be smooth sailing. Mm-hmm. If only because the first time you need to go all the way across the conference, the fact that you're not going to have to walk, a 30-minute walk through multiple hotels. So you're just going to have that moment of like, all right. And then people are still going to throw pool parties. So you're still going to get to go to those things anyway. And everything's going to be back on the strip. And when the conference ends, everyone's just going to go to the strip and have fun, right? Like QueerCon's still going to have their pool party. That was always offsite anyway. So you just go.
The thing which is unique about Defcon is you go, oh, how am I going to find other people? Like, how am I going to find other people? It is one of my the highlights of my trip, going to the airport, not in Vegas. In Vegas, you can legitimately spot the Defconer from like 1,000 yards away easily. But like in Detroit, when I get to the airport and you're going and playing it's like immediately all of a sudden you're like Defcon or Defcon or Defcon. All right, guys, we can gather up. We can start already. And then you just like one of my highlights of the trip every year is just. But it was like Balsa. Balsa was like was connecting through Detroit, and it was like Balsa. Like, holy crap! What are you doing here? Like, oh, it's just such a Defcon when we split out. Oh, go on.
I'm just imagining you walking through the airport, tapping people on the shoulder, going, "You going to Defcon? You going to Defcon? You going to Defcon? Hey, friend!" Like,
what do you mean? There is no question. Are you going to Defcon? Is this your first, is this your first, it's actually not even is this, because I don't even like is this your first Defcon? It's how long have you been going to Defcon? There is no question this person is going to Defcon or not. It's either the Defcon shirt, there's something. You can spot them 1,000 miles away, and here, you go out into Vegas, you'll be able to spot them. I think ultimately, I will take a Defcon over a non-Defcon every time. 2, I think every Defcon, for me, and this is weird to think about, there has been ups and downs to Defcon, but it is always better. Some years, it improves by only 5%. Other years, it jumps 20, 30, 40%. Every year, I have always gotten more and more and more pumped about every new one, every opportunity. The exception was safe mode, because there was like, I didn't get to see anyone. That was like the biggest like thing. But as far as every Defcon has improved for me. In this one, I actually don't think is going to be just a few percentage. I think it's going to be massive. Because every year, especially for you and I personally, we figured it out a little bit more. First year we did video, it was like, oh my gosh, this was like, the first year I did it, I would say, was like, I don't think you were there that year. It was a few videos. It was fun. Next year, it was like, we're going to do all the videos. And we're like, that was a terrible idea. And then the next year, we kind of found a balance. This next year, we found even more of a balance. And then we found out, oh, we can match a lot more photo with video. And that was even more fun. And I think this year, even more so, we're going to find personally, a better balance. I think more stuff in a more focused area. I am all for getting away from casinos and all of that. Like, I think it's going to be just such a good year because the alternative, and especially it's going to be such a good year because the alternative was no Defcon. So how can I not be excited about it?
Also, and this is completely selfish, completely just on our side, nothing to do with any other attendee. Not having to put our cameras away when we walk from place to place because we have to go through the casino is like, thank you. For the love of God. I hated the logistics of like, can I film here? Can I not film here? Can I take pictures? Can I not take pictures? Like, also just not having to deal with casino security. Like, God, ugh.
Yeah. Ugh. It was always a mess, and you always had, it was a mess. And I am also very excited.
Also, think of all the new places you could put googly eyes. Right? Like, this is what an adventure. What an adventure.
What an adventure. Yeah, I think, oh gosh, I think art, I would, by the way, I was thinking about this. I forgot what year it was. There was we'll call it a quiet chill out lounge, where it was actually like a defunk chill out lounge. And I could see them having another one this year where it's like, all right, I need to get away. I need to not have loudness. I need to just like relax and chill. And it was a quieter room too.
Yeah.
So I could see them having that too. Seclusion pods. You just like close yourself in. You and I could cuddle in one together with that. Thank you so.
We could also just find a corner of a random room and do that. So
it is true. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for joining us. This is like an impromptu, like, woo, we are going live because it's been far too long. And thank you for like just randomly coming in live on a non-scheduled video. Braden, Wi-Fi, digital, like, gosh, you guys are awesome. Joey Boy, all beautiful things. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great weekend and hack on.